Good morning, welcome to story time. And we're gonna keep reading some spooky stories since we're close to Halloween. So our first one is The Legend of Spookly, the Square Pumpkin. One day in the pumpkin patch, the strangest little pumpkin hatched. Spookly wasn't like his friends, where they had curves, he had ends. Spookly was different, he was odd, he was rare. Spookly the pumpkin wasn't round, he was square. While the round pumpkins had fun rolling along, poor Spookly sat there shaped all wrong. He tried and tried with all his might, but he couldn't budge. He just sat tight. The other pumpkins teased him because he was square. Spookly wished he was round and could roll everywhere. That is, until one night when they all discovered it's fine to be round when the weather is fair, but there are times it's better to be a square. Halloween was just a day away when the mighty storm blew across the bay. It tossed the round pumpkins to and fro. It snapped their vines, then off they'd go, bouncing left, slamming right, banging, bashing. What a sight! Spookly sat there filled with fright, but glad to be a square that night. Suddenly the fence gave way. 3 pumpkins rolled out into the bay. Spookly knew what must be done. It was up to him. He was the one. He teetered, he tottered, he tipped, he tried, and finally flipped. He was on his side. And he again tipped, again he flopped, again he flipped. And then he stopped, right in the gap where the fence had snapped. He blocked the way, the hole was capped. All the pumpkins shouted, "Hooray!" Spookly the square pumpkin saved the day. Then a pumpkin hit him with a whack. He thought a shell would start to crack. Then another one hit him with a thump, and another one with a smack. Then one by one, a ton of pumpkins piled on the stack, with a bang and a bash and a crunch and a crash, and then it all went black. At dawn, when the storm had stopped, the farmer came out and checked his crop. He picked his pumpkins up one by one and laid them out in the warm, dry sun. And when the last was removed away, the old farmer could see what had saved the day. An odd-shaped pumpkin, short and dense, was wedged against the broken fence. Its shell was bruised, its stem was too, but there was brave little Spookly sitting straight and strong and true. Right then and there the farmer knew of all the seeds he'd ever sown, Spookly's were the most special that had ever grown. The next year, when it was time to sow, he sowed those seeds in every row. He watered and weeded and watched them grow. And oh, that morning in about mid-June, when the pumpkin patch began to bloom, there were tiny pumpkins everywhere, hundreds and hundreds, most of them square. But some were cubes and some rectangular, some were flat and others triangular. There was a bed of bright red ones and 2 rows of blue. There were polka-dotted pumpkins and rainbow ones too. There were thousands of colors and hundreds of shapes. Oh, what a garden variety makes! Now, every year on Halloween, Spookly's patch is quite a scene. People come from far and near to see what wonders grew that year. They stop, they gawk, they gaze, they stare, then pick a pumpkin that's round, triangular, or perfectly square. Now, you know the story of how Spookly grew. Maybe someday, if you tell someone too, they'll go tell someone who'll go tell another, and maybe one day we'll all discover you can't judge a book or a pumpkin by its cover. The little old lady who was not afraid of anything. Are you afraid of something? It's okay. Most people are afraid of at least one thing. Once upon a time, there was a little old lady who was not afraid of anything. One windy afternoon, the little old lady left her cottage and went for a walk in the forest to collect herbs and spices and nuts and seeds. She walked so long and so far it started to get dark. There was only a sliver of moon shining through the night. The little old lady started to walk home. Suddenly she stopped. Right in the middle of the path were two big shoes, and the shoes went clump, clump. "Get out of my way, you two big shoes. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and she walked on down the path. But behind her she could hear the two shoes go clump, clump. A little further on, the little old lady stumbled into a pair of pants, and the pants went wiggle, wiggle. "Get out of my way, you pair of pants. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and she walked on. But behind her, she could hear two shoes go clump, clump, and one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. Further still, the little old lady bumped into a shirt, and the shirt went shake, shake. "Get out of my way, you silly shirt. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and on she walked, a little bit faster. But behind her, she could hear two shoes go clump, clump, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, and one shirt go shake, shake. A little ways on, the little old lady came upon two white gloves and a tall black hat, and the gloves went clap, clap, and the hat went nod, nod. "Get out of my way, you two white gloves and you tall black hat. I'm not afraid of you," she said, and on she walked just a little bit faster. But behind her she could hear two shoes go clump, clump, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, one shirt go shake, shake, two gloves go clap, clap, and one hat go nod, nod. By now the little old lady was walking at quite a fast pace. She was very near her cottage when she was startled by a very huge, very orange, very scary pumpkin head. And the head went boo, boo. This time the little old lady did not stop to talk. She did not stop at all. She ran. But behind her she could hear two pairs of shoes go clump, clump, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, one shirt go shake, shake, two gloves go clap, clap, one hat go nod, nod, and one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. The little old lady did not look back. She ran as fast as she could and didn't stop to catch her breath until she was safe inside her cottage with the door locked. She sat in her chair by the fire and she rocked and she rocked and she rocked. It was so quiet in her cottage before the knock, knock on the door. Should she answer it? Well, she was not afraid of anything, so she went to the door and opened it. What do you think she saw? Two shoes go clump, clump, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, one shirt go shake, shake, two gloves go clap, clap, one hat go nod, nod, and one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. "I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady bravely. "What do you want anyway?" "We've come to scare you." "You can't scare me," said the little old lady. "Then what's to become of us?" said the pumpkin head, suddenly looking unhappy. "I have an idea," said the little old lady. She whispered into the pumpkin's ears. The pumpkin head nodded, and his face seemed to brighten. The little old lady said good night, closed the door, and whistled on her way to bed. The next morning she woke up early. She went to her window and looked out into her garden. And what do you think she saw? Two shoes go clump, clump, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, one shirt go shake, shake, two gloves go clap, clap, one hat go nod, nod, and one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo, and scare all the crows away. And this one is called 5 Black black cats on a dark, misty night sit in a row beneath the moonlight. 5 black cats on a shadowy street looking around. Who will they meet? 5 black cats out on the prowl stop in their tracks at the hoot of an owl. Hoo, hoo. 5 black cats softly slinking round suddenly hear a strange, ghostly sound. 5 black cats bravely swishing their tails follow the sound of the low, eerie wails. 5 black cats, to their great surprise, are watched by jack-o'-lantern eyes. 5 black cats spot a tiny white mouse scurrying into a spooky old house. 5 black cats hear the little mouse squeak. They nudge open the door with a loud creak, creak. 5 black cats creep through empty rooms. At the top of the stairs, a dark shadow looms. 5 black cats get a bit of a scare from the flip-flapping wings of a bat in the air. All of a sudden, someone turns on the light. What a surprise! It's a ghost party night. And this story had 5 black cats. Do you remember the felt story we did with the 5 pumpkins last time? We're going to do it again. And if you remember, you can say it with me. So 5 little pumpkins sitting on a gate. The first one said, "Oh my, it's getting late." The second one said, "There are witches in the air." The third one said, "But we don't care." The fourth one said, "Let's run and run and run." The fifth one said, "I'm ready for some fun." Whoo went the wind and out went the lights. And the 5 little pumpkins rolled out of sight. It's the 3 billy goats gruff. It's not really a Halloween story, but it has a scary troll in it, so. A long time ago, on the rocky side of a river, there lived a family of 3 hungry billy goats gruff. The wild grasses flourished on the other side of the river, where the sun always shone brightest, and under the bridge passing over the water there lived a troll with a heart of stone, who guarded the crossing day and night. The billy goats became so tempted by the tasty-looking grasses that they were determined to get to the other side of the river. But the water was deep and full of fish, some of them even larger than the goats. The littlest and hungriest goat was the first to march towards the crossing. Trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. Bravely, the little billy goat gruff trotted across the bridge. Trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. "Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?" roared the selfish troll. Trip, trap, trip, trap. "It's only I," said the little billy goat, squeaked. "I'm heading up the hillside to make myself fat." "I'm going to gobble you up," declared the troll. "Oh no, don't eat me," cried the littlest goat. "Wait till the next billy goat crosses. He's much bigger than me." "Well, go on then. You're nothing but skin and bones, and I want to fix a hearty stew." Munch, munch. Next, the second billy goat gruff stomped across the bridge. Trip, trap, trip, trap. "Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?" shouted the nasty troll. "It's only I," said the second billy goat. "I'm heading up the hillside to make myself fat. I'm going to gobble you up," the troll growled. "Oh no, don't eat me," begged the second goat. "Big billy goat gruff will be crossing soon." "Then get out of the way, you scrawny creature. Big billy goat will make a much tastier meal." Munch, munch. Before long, the biggest billy goat gruff stormed across the bridge. Crack! Crash! Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge? Howled the greedy troll. It is I, said the big billy goat. I'm heading up to the hillside to make myself fat. I'm going to gobble you up, the troll thundered. Try if you dare, the biggest billy goat bellowed right back. The troll scowled. The goat charged. Then bam! Splash! Gulp. Who's that splashing in my river? It is only I, the troll squeaked. I'm going to gobble you up. Trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. But the troll was probably a bit too sour and green to make a tasty meal. The troll watched in defeat as a herd of billy goats joined their friends on the hillside, and over where the sun shone brightest and the wild grasses flourished, the billy goats would fill their bellies. Froggy picks a pumpkin. At school, Froggy read a poster. Don't forget, trip to the pumpkin patch tomorrow. Pumpkin picking contest. Next morning, Froggy woke up and looked out the window. A beautiful pumpkin moon was sitting and colorful leaves were falling. Leaves, leaves, cried Froggy. I want to go out and play in the... Whoops! He fell out of bed. Thump. Froggy, called his mother. What? Stop jumping off the bed, dear. Today is your field trip. Oh, yeah, cried Froggy. It's time to pick a pumpkin. And he hopped up and got dressed. Zip, zoop, zup, zut, 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 zat. And flopped into the kitchen singing. Flop, zap, flop. Singing pumpkins, pumpkins, muffins and pies, pumpkin faces lighting the sky. He ate his breakfast of cereal and flies. Munch, crunch, munch. And imagined a whole steaming pumpkin pie. Yum! And a whole line of jack-o'-lanterns outside, lighting the night sky. On the school bus, Froggy bounced in his seat, boing, 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 and led his friends singing, pumpkins, pumpkins, muffins and pie, pumpkins' faces lighting the sky. When they got to the pumpkin patch, he jumped off the bus. Flop, 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 and sang, I'm gonna pick a pumpkin, I'm gonna pick a pumpkin. Froggy, called his teacher, Mrs. Witherspoon. What? Wait, dear, we're going to have a pumpkin picking contest for the biggest, smallest, prettiest, ugliest, and best all-around pumpkin. Yippee! Cried Froggy, and he took off again. Flap, 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 and tripped over a pumpkin, flew through the air, and knocked into another pumpkin. Boink. Max bounced over 3 small pumpkins and tried to pick a huge one. It didn't budge. Ugh. Travis said, step aside, and lifted it up. Matthew zigzagged around Max, Travis, and Froggy and picked up the prettiest pumpkin in the world. It was shiny and perfect and just the right size. Froggalina twirled and danced through the pumpkin patch, then squatted down and said, hello, my sweet, and picked a very small, very dark orange pumpkin and kissed it. Smooch. Froggy hopped up on a gigantic pumpkin and looked all around like a pirate on the bow of a ship and shouted, ahoy there! And he leapfrogged over to Froggalina. He leapfrogged over Max. He leapfrogged over Matthew. Flop, flop, splat, and fell smack across a really big pumpkin. He stood up and said, "This is the one," and he tried to pick it up. He got it up to his knees. Huff, he got it up to his chest. Yes! Then he trudged along with his huge pumpkin. Lug, lug, ugh! "Froggy!" called Mrs. Witherspoon. "What? You're going the wrong way." "Oops," said Froggy, and started hopping. Max yelled, "The last one in is a rotten egg." Everybody else ran with their pumpkins, and Travis rolled his really big one, rumble, rumble, rumble. When Froggy finally got there, he was too pooped to pop, and tripped and smashed his pumpkin. Smoosh! "Oops," cried Froggy, looking more red in the face than green. Everybody laughed, even Miss Witherspoon. Then she said, "And now for the winners of the pumpkin picking contest. For the biggest, Travis. For the smallest, Max." Max lifted his hat, and there atop his head was a pumpkin the size of a golf ball. For the prettiest, Matthew. And for the best all around, Froggalina. Hers is a pie pumpkin, great for baking. Froggalina said, "Hello, my sweet," and kissed it. Smooch! Then Miss Witherspoon said, "And for the ugliest, yours, Froggy. What a mess!" And everybody cheered, "Hip, hip, hooray!" Even Froggy. And on the bus ride home, Froggy sang, "Pumpkins, pumpkins, muffins and pie, pumpkin faces lighting the sky," and all his friends sang with him. The last story for today's story time is also a movie, and this is a very old story. It's called The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. It was a brisk autumn day, but it wasn't just any autumn day. It was Halloween. Charlie Brown was busy raking leaves while Snoopy was busy playing in them. Lucy stopped by with a football. "How about practicing some plays, Charlie Brown?" asked Lucy. "I'll hold the ball and you come running and kick it." "You must think I'm really stupid," replied Charlie Brown. "You just want me to come running up to the ball so you can pull it away and watch me fall flat on my back." "This time you can trust me," said Lucy, flashing a toothy grin. But Charlie Brown didn't believe her. "No," answered Charlie Brown. "No and no and no." "Please, Charlie Brown," pleaded Lucy. "I have a signed document testifying that I will not pull the ball away." Charlie Brown grabbed the piece of paper and studied it. "It is signed. I guess if you have signed a document in your hand, you can't go wrong. It looks like I'm really going to kick the football this year." With that, Charlie Brown backed up and charged. Just as he was about to kick the ball, Lucy pulled it away, and Charlie Brown fell flat on his back. "Ah!" Charlie Brown screamed. Lucy picked up the piece of paper. Funny thing, this document was never notarized. Meanwhile, Linus was inside writing an important letter. "Dear Great Pumpkin, I'm looking forward to your arrival on Halloween night." Charlie Brown approached his friend. "What are you writing, Linus?" "It's the time of the year to write a letter to the Great Pumpkin," answered Linus. "Who?" asked Charlie Brown, looking confused. "Every year on Halloween night, the Great Pumpkin rises up out of the pumpkin patch and flies through the air with bags of toys for children everywhere," explained Linus. After Charlie Brown left, Linus continued writing his letter. "You must get discouraged because more people believe in Santa Claus than you. Santa does get more publicity, and that might make you number 2, but that means you really just need to try harder." Just then, Lucy and Peppermint Patty appeared. "Oh, bother," moaned Lucy. "Linus, are you writing a letter to that stupid pumpkin again?" Linus nodded. "I am the laughingstock of the neighborhood because every year my little brother writes a letter to the Great Pumpkin," Lucy cried and stormed off. Sally appeared just as Linus was signing his letter. "What are you doing, Linus?" asked Sally. Linus hesitated and then answered, "I'm writing to the Great Pumpkin. He rises up out of the pumpkin patch on Halloween night and brings bags of toys for children everywhere." "Oh, Linus," swooned Sally, you say the cutest things." "Hey, Sally, would you like to sit with me in the pumpkin patch on Halloween night and wait for the Great Pumpkin together?" asked Linus. Sally's eyes lit up. "Oh, Linus, I'd love to." Linus went to mail his letter. "Really, Linus," cried Lucy, "just how do you think you're going to mail that letter anyway? You can't possibly reach the mailbox, and I'm going to help you." Linus wrapped his blanket in the air, hooked a corner of it on a handle, and pulled open the mailbox. Then he sent his letter flying into the air. Lucy watched as the letter slid into the open mailbox. "Like that," replied a triumphant Linus, and he walked away. Just then, Charlie Brown ran up, waving a piece of paper in his hand. "Hey!" exclaimed Charlie Brown. "I got an invitation to Violet's Halloween party." Lucy rolled her eyes. "Oh, bother," she said with a sneer. "Charlie Brown, if you got an invitation, it must have been a mistake." "Lucy, do you know if Linus is going to the party?" asked Sally. Lucy sighed. "Probably not. That blockhead brother of mine will probably be out in the pumpkin patch making a fool of himself, just like he does every year." "Maybe there really is a great pumpkin," said Sally. "Do I get to go trick-or-treating this year?" Sally asked her big brother. "Sure, Sally," replied Charlie. Oh boy, exclaimed Sally. "How do we do it?" "It's very simple," Lucy said. "All you have to do is walk up to a house and ring the doorbell. When the person opens the door, say, 'Tricks or treats.'" Sally looked suspicious. "Are you sure that's legal?" "Oh, good grief," Sally cringed. "Of course it's legal." Everyone met later that afternoon at Lucy's house in their costume. A person should always pick a costume which is a direct contrast to one's own personality, said Lucy as she lowered a witch mask over her face. Lucy looked Charlie Brown up and down. "Really, Charlie Brown? What are you supposed to be anyway?" Charlie Brown responded from underneath the cut-up sheet. "A ghost. I guess I had a little trouble with the scissors." A moment later, Snoopy pranced all dressed up for Halloween. "What's he supposed to be?" asked Lucy. "A pilot from World War I, replied Charlie Brown. "Now I've heard everything," cried Lucy. "Okay, everyone, we'll have to go trick-or-treating and then head over to Violet's for the Halloween party. Everyone got their bag to fill?" The trick-or-treaters passed Linus, who was settled in the pumpkin patch waiting for the great pumpkin. "Have you come to sing pumpkin carols?" asked a hopeful Linus. "Oh, good grief," replied Lucy, throwing her arms in the air. Lucy turned to Sally. "Well, are you coming with us or not?" Sally looked back and forth from Linus to her friends and then back at Linus. After their friends left, Linus turned to Sally and said, "I'm glad you decided to stay." "Do you really think you will come?" asked Sally. "Tonight the great pumpkin rises up and flies through the air to bring toys to children everywhere," exclaimed Linus. Meanwhile, the trick-or-treaters were starting their rounds in the neighborhood. Each time someone opened the door, everyone cried, "Tricks or treats!" "Could I have an extra piece for my blockhead brother, please?" said Lucy, flashing a toothy grin. "He couldn't come with us because he's sitting in a pumpkin patch waiting for the great pumpkin." Oops. Everyone met up on the sidewalk to size up what they received. "It's so embarrassing. I have to ask for extra candy for the blockhead Linus," said Lucy as she looked through her bag. "Looks like I've got 5 pieces of candy. And I got a chocolate bar," added Violet. "I got gummy candy," said Peppermint Patty. Charlie looked in his bag with disbelief. "I got a rock." The trick-or-treaters worked their way through the neighborhood, and after every few houses, they stopped to take stock of what they received. "Nice!" exclaimed Lucy. "I got 3 cookies." "Pack of gum," added Peppermint Patty. "A rock," said Charlie Brown. "Not again." When everyone finished trick-or-treating, they started walking to Violet's house for the party. On their way, they passed by the pumpkin patch. Well, has the great pumpkin been by yet? Asked Violet with a smirk. You missed the trick-or-treating, and now you're going to miss the Halloween party, said Peppermint Patty. Sally stepped forward and replied, You all think you are so smart. Just you wait. The great pumpkin is going to show. Linus knows what he's talking about. With that, the kids left for Violet's house. Once at the party, everyone started to partake in Halloween festivities. Some were carving pumpkins, while others were getting ready to bob for apples. Out of my way, said Lucy, stepping up to the barrel. Let me show you how it's done. After a few seconds, Lucy pulled her head out of the bucket, but instead of just pulling out an apple, she pulled out a beagle. Ew, cried Lucy, my lips touched dog lips. That's gross. Later at the pumpkin patch, Linus and Sally were still waiting for the great pumpkin to make an appearance. Suddenly, the rustling noise came from the middle of the pumpkin patch. They both turned toward the noise. Look, Linus cried, pointing to the moving shadow. There he is. It's the great pumpkin. He's rising up from the pumpkin patch. Linus was so overwhelmed with excitement that he fainted. Within seconds, Linus came to. He looked around and said, What happened? Did I faint? Did he leave us toys? I was robbed, Sally yelled. Halloween is over and I missed it. You kept me up all night waiting for the great pumpkin, and the only thing that came was a beagle. When the great pumpkin comes, I still put a good word in for you, Linus yelled to Sally, but then she was gone. Oh, great pumpkin, moaned Linus, where are you? Later that night, Lucy woke up, looked at her clock, and went to check on her little brother. He was not in his room, so she went outside and found him sleeping in the pumpkin patch. She picked him up and carried him home and put him to bed. The next morning, Charlie Brown and Linus met up. Well, another Halloween has come and gone, and all I got was a bag full of rocks, said Charlie Brown. Guess the great pumpkin never showed? You just wait till next year, Charlie Brown, cried Linus. I'll sit in that pumpkin patch until the great pumpkin appears. I'll be there. And that's the end of the story time. Thanks for joining us. Bye.